Albert Morales. I have FSHD. I was diagnosed about 7-8 months ago. I'm 51. With me, I have Noah Salih, MAT, Jake Harden, MAT, Bruce Matsuno, Rolf. Okay, I'm here to tell you my story. I spoke to June about, I guess, 4 or 5 months ago, and I told her my story about what was working for me, and she said, Al, it would be great if we could do something in Texas where, you know, you have the ability to share your story. She had not heard about some of the stuff I've been doing before, which was good, encouraging, because you know, anything that we can learn that's new. I happen to believe that the research around this disease is quite poor and limited and faulted. Some of the research that they've issued out there has been performed on the different disease state, operating in diseases that operate in a different way on rats. How did I come about finding out I had this disease? Well, he's been training me for the last hour. So I just finished training with Noah, and this morning I saw Bruce at a 7:30 in the morning. So I took on a new role about a year and a half ago, a little over a year and a half ago, that required me to get on a lot of airplanes. The stress of that on my body triggered a reaction. And all of a sudden I started to feel a lot of pain in my right leg, lower leg, radiating from the knee all the way down to the point where I could barely walk. And so the first thing I do is I'm thinking, well, I've had sciatica before. I go to see my orthopedic surgeon, and he takes an x-ray. He thinks it's a pinched nerve in the L4, L5 region, maybe S1, S2. MRI shows a slight herniation. He sends me over to the spinal specialist down the street here in Plano, the same guys who operated on Tiger Woods. So I know it was in good hands. So I go in and see them. They take an x-ray of my back. He looks at the MRI. He says, how old are you? I said, 50. He says, you have the back of a 40-year-old. Your back looks beautiful. Your disc fell perfect distance. And the little herniation you have on the MRI, he says, that's not causing your pain in your leg. He says, I don't have a clue. I don't have a clue what's causing the pain in your leg. So we're going to do an MRI of your knee and your leg, and we're going to see what that looks like. They did that. The MRI comes back, and my leg looks like a Christmas tree, meaning it's dark, and the entire white on the tibia front and the back is white, fatty tissue. You've all seen images online of the way MRIs look at people with our disease. You see all that white, all that fatty tissue replacing muscle tissue, right? And he said, well, it doesn't look right. We're going to send you to a neurologist. All this the whole process took 9 months. Yeah. From the time it takes to get one appointment to the next appointment to, anyway, I finally see a neurologist. She didn't know much about the disease. But she said, what's your family history? I said, well, my mom has FSHD, my sister has it. She says, well, you have to take a genome test, because I mean, the most logical explanation is. So I take the genome test, came back positive. Although the number, which was like a 30, indicates that it's probably moderate, not overly severe. Now, as soon as I started doing research on this, I realized I had this disease my whole life. There were elements of my body that I thought were attributable to bad training. So I noticed that this atrophy of my center chest muscles, maybe since I was 25. Most recently, in the last few years, I noticed this abdominal protrusion on my left side, which is all indicative. So I'm like, well, wait a minute, this is, oh, and of course, what I thought was a torn rotator cuff as to why I couldn't do this.
Yes.
It wasn't the rotator cuff, it was asymmetrical weakness caused by the disease, atrophy of the muscles, my back muscles got atrophied. And by the way, I can do this now. I couldn't hold my arm up when we started working here. It would just drop. I started working with Bruce, I don't know, almost 2 years ago maybe. And it happened because I started feeling this pain in my, I was working with a personal trainer at my club, and I started having this terrible pain, as I said, about a year and a half ago. Yeah. And he said, you know, you should see my friend Bruce. He's a rolfer, and he can probably help you. We started working together. And then as he noticed the weaknesses that I had, he said, you know, you really need to see Jake. And so I was seeing Bruce right down the hall here. When you come into the door, Bruce's office was over there, And I met Jake, I don't know how long we were working together now?
February.
No, it must be August of last year.
No, we have data from February.
Just from February?
Mm-hmm. Last year.
That was last year.
Yeah,
it was
February 2017.
It's 2017, so it's
almost a year.
Yeah.
Almost 2 years.
Almost a year.
Year and a half.
Year and a half. And we started working together, and as soon as we started to do some of the MAT work on the leg and the exercises, almost immediately my pain in the leg went away. I said, well, there's something here. I hadn't been diagnosed yet. I was working on, but I was working on. Well, actually, no, I had been diagnosed, and so I guess it's been a while since I've been diagnosed. So anyway, why did I want to participate in this and help whoever else I can? What I've been able to do with Bruce and Noah working together is truly tremendous in terms of how I feel, my mobility, my stability, and I would say the work that I've done with Bruce on the Rolfing, and both of them are going to explain in detail exactly what they do, has helped break down and enable my muscles to move that have been stiffened and scar tissue from the disease. You guys know how it operates. And that has given me balance, improved my posture, whereas my shoulders used to be hunched over all the time. Now I can walk like certainly a lot better. Almost within months of working with Bruce, people would say, you look different. You're walking different. You look better. You look more balanced. Opening up the hips and everything, and that enables me to move. And whereas I was very stiff. Working with Noah on MAT, it's about really then going right at the heart of the neurological system, the nerves that drive the muscles to work, stimulating them so that the muscles can activate and move, and then strengthen them. They'll get into detail. So in my view, this has been a synergistic relationship between Rolfing, and I believe that it has worked to working in Rolfing and MAT together has accelerated my improvement. And so that's why we're here. And so I'm looking forward to introducing Bruce and Noah to speak about their craft and their techniques. And I'm open to answer any questions. I'm joined here by my wife, Patricia, my daughter, Isabel, my sister, Vicky, who was diagnosed at age 50, same age I was when I was diagnosed, and Juan, her husband. I'm also here because I'm hoping that my sister begins to take something from this and work to, she said to me yesterday, I want to work till I'm 75. Well, if you want to be moving at 75, I want you to start doing some of this work, because it can get hard. All of you know what we're talking about here. You were just talking about wanting to go to Greece and not being able to go up a flight of stairs. And I don't want my sister to get in that situation. I certainly don't want to be there. And my wife keeps telling me, we want to travel when we retire. I said, well, this is why I'm here every week for 3.5 hours, an hour and a half with Bruce and 2 hours with Noah. So it takes hard work to do this kind of stuff, but the way I feel about it is I'm extending my life. And so hopefully you guys take something important from this, and that's our goal. I'll leave it to you guys.
Thank you, Albert. Albert has come a long way. When I first started working with him, there was a lot of instability, particularly in the shoulder and left side of the trunk. All those things have improved quite remarkably. I wouldn't have thought that we would be where we are now, and we've had hardly any hiccups. I mean, one recently.
That was self-inflicted.
Yeah, we attributed it to walking around and walked around a lot in New York, and then sandals.
I thought I was having a relapse of pain in my
leg. Yeah, similar knee pain came back.
Same pain. I said, oh my gosh, I can't. My brain can't handle emotionally going backwards here. And I was speaking to Noah. He said, "What are you doing at home?" I said, "Well, I walk in sandals a lot." He says, "You can't walk in sandals because it's an open-ended shoe and it just creates instability." Sure enough, I stopped wearing the sandals and the pain went away.
Yeah. Wearing sandals, you have to walk in them a certain way. You have to flex the bottom of the foot, and there's this very big complex of when the heel strikes, going from pronation into supination, which I won't go into that in detail, though we are going to go into some details today. But none of that can happen if you're, flexing the bottom of your foot. Anyways, but if we do hit little snags like that, and it's real common when we're trying to progress someone, and we want them going up, but typically, you have these little dips here and there, but with MAT, we're able to diagnose the dip and bring those muscles back up to speed. In his case, it was really just stop wearing the sandals. I mean, we did a little more MAT on it that one day and got some muscles a bit stronger, and yeah, he's doing great. Just a little.
Can you be more specific as to what is MAT?
We will.
Okay.
Yeah. First, I have to tell you a whole bunch about myself, my life story. Not really. I became a trainer 15 years ago, and back then I thought it was all about just making people leaner and stronger and improving physiques. Counting reps, being very energetic, and your typical trainer that you see on TV. Yelling at their clients and all that stuff. I learned quickly. I was at 24 Hour Fitness, and they had a relationship with an organization called the National Academy of Sports Medicine. So they were teaching their trainers all this stuff, and the term corrective exercise came up. And I quickly learned that resistance training, I'm going to use resistance training and strength training synonymously, but that you can make a huge impact on people's lives other than just making them look better. You could, do things like possibly alleviate back pain or completely get rid of back pain, knee pain, all sorts of things like that. My process back then, what I'd have everyone do, they come in to see me, and we do a movement assessment where people would raise their arms over their head, which can be problematic for some FSHD people, and then go into a deep squat, and then I would watch and look for deviations in movement, and then go from there. And that was supposed to tell me what muscles were weak and what muscles were tight. But I ended up giving everyone pretty much a cookie cutter evaluation. I would say tight calves, tight hip flexors, tight lower back muscles, weak glutes, weak abdominals, and weak dorsiflexors. Now, that information was enough to help people. I helped a lot of people for years. And the idea with that was you would address the tightness first. So the way we do that, we would foam roll the tight areas. I don't know if you guys are familiar with foam roll. It's around a lot now, self-myofascial release. We would deal with the tight muscles first by rolling and statically stretching or passively stretching. And then the other step to that was strengthening the weak muscles. I would later learn that all the success I was getting was from dealing with the weak muscles. Not that the other stuff was necessarily hurting people, but that really was what was having an impact on people and making them feel better and perform better. Yeah. Sorry, I'm a little kind of all over the place with some of my notes. So yeah, I realized early on that it seemed some people could contract muscles better than others. So if I identified a glute weakness and having someone do a floor bridge, for example, a glute bridge. I don't know how many of you guys work out or know what that is, but it's an exercise you lay on your back and you push up, and it's supposed to work the glute. Now I noticed, some people's glutes did not seem to work, while others did. And the big question was why, and how can I make this better? Well, under the assumption of tight muscles creating weak muscles, which is it's a term called reciprocal inhibition. So for example, if your hip flexors are tight, then it's not going to allow your glutes to contract optimally until you address the tight hip flexors, foam rolling, stretching. Now I operate, as well as Jake, under the knowledge assumption that muscle weakness is actually the cause of muscle tightness. And we call that reverse reciprocal inhibition, or that's the Roscoff principle, correct?
Correct. I mean, scientifically speaking, anytime there is a tightness or a tight sensation in your body, that sensation is a protective mechanism to weakness. And
to some kind of weakness.
It's a compensation.
Yeah.
So, example being, I mean, your car, you basically, everybody's probably experienced this. They lift their leg up and eventually they feel their hamstring. And they feel a sensation of tightness or a stretch sensation or a stretch response. Quite frankly, that response is, that is your body tapping the brakes, just like you tap the brakes in your car. Due to the fact that if I lift my leg this high, all of my hip flexor muscles that have adequate strength to hold and support this position, so I don't feel anything in my hamstring. But if I lift my leg this high, I feel my hip flexors are getting really tired. They're at the end of their strength, and my hamstring kicks in. That is a constant battle going on in our bodies. The fact that we're seeking, if we want to move, or put your hand up. If the cell phone is completely safe because he has 10 pounds of pressure and I have 10 pounds of pressure. But if he loses a lot of pressure and I keep pushing, then the cell phone, like, just give up. The cell phone lose stability, and you would drop whatever. So the body has a your central nervous system, your brain is constantly correcting that. And as we have slowly discovered a little bit with what you guys are dealing with, somewhat of the software that the brain is constantly trying to send out signals and make sure things are stable, the software that is running there is corrupted. And there's some things in there that are not allowing the brain, and that's it's the autonomic nervous system, or the primitive part of your brain, aka fight or flight. It's your survival mechanism. In that part of the brain, as it sends out signals to the neuromuscular system, this goes on with everybody, but it's just more severe in FSHD cases, is that when it sends out a signal, it runs into corruption in the kind of the files, if I could use that terminology. So when it hits a certain command, it says, I can't do that, that file's corrupt. And if it continues to try and do that command, then that muscle will really tighten up a lot in response to trying to protect an unstable area.
And in that scenario, you can also have possibly weak hamstrings as well.
Yes.
But they feel tight. I mean, most people have tightness in their hamstrings. Most people think they have tight hamstrings because it feels tight. But the truth may be they actually have weak hamstrings, but they stretch them and stretch them and stretch them and stretch them. And those types of passive forces on muscles like that can actually make them even weaker. So yeah.
No.
So yeah, everything we do as an MAT specialist and as a trainer is based on the perspective of trying to address weak muscles. And this is what makes MAT very unique as far as a modality. I mean, most things are trying to seek out tightness. And we don't concern ourselves with that at all. We are looking for muscle weakness, muscles' inability to contract, and then how do we make that better. With that, I'd like to kick it over to Jake. He can tell you his life story and a little bit about MAT. He's been doing this a lot longer, MAT, than I have, and he's been one of my teachers the past few years.
Just to add to that, I mean, basically, you know, we view ourselves as muscle specialists, and addressing, our primary focus is to address muscle weaknesses.
Contractionologists.
It's a good term.
Muscleologists.
We will clarify some stuff in a minute when we do some demonstration, but we address muscle weaknesses in a couple different ways. One is through, aka the computer system, the neuromuscular system not properly receiving and processing signals. That is the technical aspect of laying on a table as we kind of work to improve how that program is working. The other part is we use that information to objectively make exercise choices and work to strengthen those muscles. Strength comes in two different forms in the body, or through the muscle. It comes through how well is it being communicated through the neurological system, and also how much output can it produce. The output side is your traditional, I'm going to do a push-up, I can do 10 push-ups, now I can do 50 push-ups. I'm objectively stronger because now I can only do 10, now I can do 50. We'll jump into clarifying a little bit more about that in a few minutes. But I thought I'd let Bruce chime in and tell us about Rolfing and how the kind of synergy there really works, and then we'll throw in some demonstrations there.
Okay. I do want to get into strength training.
Yeah. Okay.
Should I wait till later?
After Bruce, I think it'd be meaningful for us to hear from the audience as to what specifically their issues are they're dealing with, because it affects everybody differently, and help inform, maybe a target, maybe we can be a little bit, based on that feedback, we can be a little targeted.
Yeah.
As to,
how many of you guys right now are doing some form of resistance training?
Any type of workout.
Any type of workout?
any type of physical therapy at all?
I used to, but I haven't in a while.
Okay.
Massage therapy too, but and probably.
Well, when we get someone new, it's extremely important to understand where that person is starting off. The more info, the better. We have a thorough assessment as an MAT trainer, and it's a progression with us from the table out to the floor. We're looking at range of motion. We'll go through that later. And when you see a lack of range of motion in an area, that tells you there might be some potential weakness of those muscles that create that range of motion. Injury history, surgeries, current pain they're dealing with. I imagine some of you guys have some kind of pain that you're dealing with right now. Lifestyle's big, exercise.
The food you eat.
Yep, that's in
put in
there.
your mouth.
That's in there. Albert likes to golf. That's a factor. Travel, stress. What is your work like? Diet, medications. All those things are going to impact us in our exercise program and our resistance training program. They're always factors. You have to realize that they're all going to be factors, and certain factors can limit how much progress you can make in a specific area, as well as just in the entire body. And that's something to always consider. Things are not going to be perfect. All this stuff we're talking about, I could be talking to a room of people, of anybody, and it applies to everybody. With you guys, because of what I understand FSHD is, it's just things that you really, really need to take into consideration when you're trying to make yourself better through MAT and exercise, resistance training, which is mostly what I'm focusing on.
I don't know if you know this or not, but the FSHD Society recommends that there not be too much strength training, because where their bodies break down is when you break down muscle, they don't have the capability to build it up very well. So you have to, they're constantly,
This is why I wanted to call this over, because I disagree.
So
my experience would say,
okay. And I'm going to address that. The way we progress, when I talk about how we progress people and through the appropriate range of motion and all that other stuff, you'll get a better sense of how you can avoid that. And it should be avoided with anyone. And of course, for you guys, it's going to be a bigger concern.
To be clear, what Noah just referred to, and what he and I have spoken about on many occasions, is never going too far.
Yes.
Right.
Because when you go too far, then you can go backwards.
Yeah.
But that is true for anyone.
It is true for anyone.
Not just people with FSH.
But something that for you guys is, I don't want to say more important, but something that you have to understand better. And I'll get to my callus versus blister analogy in just a second. So as far as assessing, history, if someone has a knee replacement, do you think it might be a factor about how well someone's going to be able to, let's see, leg squat, to be able to extend and flex their knee? Do you think that might create a situation where you're just going to have to accept that this is what it is and we need to train in that range of motion? For sure. Progression, huge. It always has to be progressing. We want the entire process to be progressive. We want our clients' muscles to be contracting better as we go through this process. We also want them to be able to generate more force and for longer periods of time. Simultaneously, the way in which you stress the muscle needs to be progressive. I'm going to give you some examples here. Like Albert's really concerned about his chest, as I'm sure a lot will because of the atrophy. You have to find out the range of motion that you can work in where the muscle is contracting.
Took us some time to figure it out.
Yeah, but we knew it was muscles when they're more lengthened, they have a higher contraction potential. So for example, the pec, adducts the humerus. And if I can only exhibit this range of motion on the table during MAT, before I get to here and there's compensation through the shoulder blade, then I want to make sure I'm training that person in that range of motion. It's going to be better for the joint because that's the range of motion in which the muscle contracts optimally. If you take it past that into a range of motion where you start to lose the muscle contraction, it's bad for the joint, and you might end up actually going backwards, and we always need to be pushing this forward. But you can start someone in that range, but as the muscle gets stronger, you can gradually take them into further ranges, further shortening the muscle with load. That's one way to progress. And of course, the ways to progress that everyone's aware of is more reps, longer duration, more weight. What Albert's learned is we don't go up. I mean, I have, with him, taught him to become better at lifting this or moving the same amount of weight. And he does some of the best reps you'll see in the gym. And I'm going to get more into the specifics of reps in strength training.
But I want to address your point again because I think it's incredibly important.
This part is so important.
Working too hard. I'll say there are a couple of things that, in my opinion, in my experience, are the worst thing for this disease. A sedentary lifestyle is terrible.
Right.
You need to be active. You need to move. You need to walk. Ride a bike. Do whatever you can. Do something. Move. The other thing I would say is that working too hard, I think it absolutely can hurt you. And whether it's weight training or otherwise, I absolutely think it can hurt you if you push it too hard. And there are a lot of trainers out there in that gym who don't know anything about what we do through MAT, who probably would, and maybe could have pushed me too hard to the point of
That's
detriment.
safe to say.
It's safe to say. So I think the point is, though, the way we work together here is always very slow progression, ensuring that we don't cross that line and create. You might as well go ahead and use the analogy of the blister.
Yeah, I'll get there. It's not there. I mean, I've been a trainer for a decade before I started getting the idea of what someone's active range of motion is. That's what they can take themselves through, and then passive range of motion, what I can take them through on the table, and then there's another range of motion that chiropractors use, which is like explosive and kind of scary, but those are the 3 ranges of motion. I can give you a couple more examples, like the shoulder, and the shoulder's a big one because it affects so many of you on your dominant side. If you only have this range of motion, right, and when we started off, that's kind of where you were. Do you think it's a good idea to train all the way through that range of motion and possibly beyond it?
Probably not.
Probably not.
To somewhat, if I can interject for a second.
Yeah, of course. Everyone interject.
To somewhat simplify, from a traditional training standpoint, I would be defensive and say, we call ourselves trainers and we call ourselves MAT specialists, but basic from the pool of training and exercise that's applied to most people, and what we do, it's safe to even not even call it the same thing, because of the amount of precision, the amount of education we have behind it, and
our goals,
and the goals, and the amount of checks and balances that we apply to the body in order to decide what is appropriate and what isn't appropriate, is a big thing. We have taken individuals like Albert and other conditions, and what I refer to as an overall physical budget. And what people run into is that if you're running into if your day-to-day life, it creates a deficit to your physical budget, then your body is going to be constantly inflamed, and it is going to constantly, that inflammation and that budget deficit has a big bag of pain, irritation, joint inflammation, atrophy, and everything that will basically suppress your lifestyle and make things go downhill or make things you just feel bad. What we can do is that we can back off, and sometimes we really do have to recognize the fact that your day-to-day activity of getting out of bed, going to the bathroom, walking to and from work or wherever you have to go is exceeding your physical budget, and that is a bad place to be in, and that's the place that we start with a lot of people in, and in that through MAT, on the table, through Bruce, we immediately start to try and give you more to work with.
Raise your budget.
Raise your budget. So in week 1, and I've run calculations on this too, to try and give people a little bit more tangible results, because your results don't look like you did 1 push-up and now you can do 10 push-ups and now you can do 50 push-ups. They don't look like you could squat 100 pounds and now you squat 300 pounds. That is not what progress really looks like. Progress looks like, in week 1, I want you to be able to get out of bed easier. And in month 2, I want you to be able to add more activity into your lifestyle without like second guessing or worrying about that activity. If I may use you as an example, as you earlier, in your dream to go travel more, I really empathize. I don't have FSHD, but I've had my own bag of some physical problems thrown my way.
Really bad car wreck.
And I do empathize with that statement. And you kind of have a choice in this. And your choice, and I've been in both spots, your choice is that you can be pessimistic, you can be down on yourself a little bit and say that it's too hard and it hurts too much. I can honestly say I've been in those shoes, and I still spend some days in those shoes, and that's okay. The goal is to get in these other shoes and say that with hard work and with the right knowledge, you do not have to face the rest of your life with limitations. And is it perfect? No. Is it this perfect linear progress where Albert's just working and every single day is progress and every single day is progress? Unfortunately, no, it's not like that, but I'll be honest with you, it's not like that for the person that has a herniated disc. It's not like that for other people either.
It's not like that for people without herniated discs.
But what I can say with confidence is, and I can give you many different testimonials, but what I can say with confidence is that with the right knowledge and the right decision making, you can make progress. And Albert has been an incredible example of this.
I mean, for me, I would say we've been working actively to improve on my ability to get my arm above my head for about 18 months. And we had finally a breakthrough. But getting the breakthrough, I also had to remap the way my brain works in terms of activating the right muscle groups to make it work. And that took me some time. So if I go like this, I unconsciously am moving my scapula in a certain way and moving my shoulder in a certain way. Because of all the weakness I had in all those muscle groups that move the arm up, I was compensating using my arm and shoulder in an incorrect way to do it, and I would get stuck. And between the work that we were doing with MAT, where we're working in activating those muscles, strengthening those muscle groups, working the scapula, the serratus, and all these things we'll get into detail later, and also working with Bruce and breaking down that fascia and opening up those muscles that had been scarred and stiffened up from the weakness, and then working with my brain and just focusing and concentrating on just activating that scapula back and then slowly moving it up and holding it up there. It's shaking a little bit, but I gotta tell you, it used to just fall. And all this was a process, the patience and work, day by day, coming in, week by week, and you continue to see but it doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
But it does happen.
And you have to understand what goes into this, because there's the muscles that attach to the arm.
There's a learning process.
And there's muscles that attach to the shoulder blade that rotate that shoulder blade up when you're doing this. So if those muscles aren't working, you're not going anywhere. And those same muscles, that say traps, they also elevate the shoulder, retract the shoulder. The serratus muscle protracts the shoulder. So you can work those muscles in those very specific exercises to target them very specifically, and just working on those, not on this movement specifically, because that's one where he's having limited range, it's more problematic, but being specific here and here improves that. Also, it requires a bit of trunk stability as well, and I'll get back to that, why you see the atrophy on the left side of the trunk in most people.
In my case, it's right side weak, left side trunk.
And that's going to be
right leg.
And
Z.
And most people do have that. Most people do have that to some extent. Nobody's symmetrical, but at the very end, I want to explain my theory of why I figured out all this is happening to people with FSHD. So yeah, finding the appropriate training and the range of motion that is appropriate for that specific individual at that specific time. And that can change from day to day depending on the stresses of your life. And how do we know what to do that? We have MAT, where we have our range of motion checks, and I can check muscles. So, for example, he comes in one day and he had a stressful day, he had to move some stuff, and that pec is shut down. Then, we need to get it back online before we can train it, or maybe put it off for another time.
The way I think about, in my mind, is there are two things that we do together here. What he and I call interchangeably MAT. And what I think about when we're talking about MAT is I'm on the table. I'm lying flat. And he's testing me. He's testing my stability of my tibia, my knee, my hips, my glutes, my shoulders, the entire body, over a sequence of events. And to the extent I fail, and I fail every day, typically I fail up here, almost all the time. Other areas of body, I used to fail, I never fail. And
well, we still build up stability.
Yeah.
It's just,
no, it's getting stronger.
Oh yeah.
And I'm failing less. That's the progression. That's what we talk about, making progress. And it's not about hard weight training or anything like that. Sometimes we spend more time on the table because the computer's not working well. So he's trying to reprogram that computer.
Mind to muscle.
Mind to muscle, the neurological system to activate. Wake it up.
Yeah. Now let's say back to that pec analogy. If it is weak that day, do you think it would be a good idea to go in there and load it up and try to do a chest press? No. You can actually go backwards. I was listening to a study this morning, really good stuff. It was a video on YouTube off the FSH website, and good news is they haven't found any actual muscle damage from strength training at all. So that's really good. But you still want to do this in a progressive manner, because you can still go backwards. You can still shut down that pec minor, and then you're not moving forward. We always want to be moving forward. We always want the contractions to be getting better. And, you know, I do think eventually we could possibly actually build pec. Right now he's in a more lose weight mode, but, you know.
I don't see much.
Yeah, man, this
I'm not loading up on protein.
This guy's an animal.
But the interesting thing is, I mean, he and I work on pec every week, right? And it's getting stronger.
It is.
It's contracting, but it's not regrowing.
Well, he's
using... that's not every part of the body.
So he's using
these
more...
These calf muscles have regrown. There's no question about it. And I'm sure that if we took an MRI of this leg, you're not going to see all that white fatty tissue anymore.
I would agree with that.
I mean, it's just hard as a rock right now. It's really, really strong and stable. But there's certain areas of the body where I'm just not noticing any regrowth.
Yeah.
Even though we know it's getting stronger.
You can increase strength without increasing muscle size.
Absolutely.
Just from a neurological standpoint. And that's definitely what we've done. I think we've had a little bit of muscle increase. Obviously in some areas, significant.
Excuse me?
Yes?
Since we came in late, what does MAT mean?
Muscle activation techniques.
Okay.
And we're about to do a demo here.
We do need to prove some.
I just want to say micro progression. So I talked about progression, and I love this analogy. The idea that in strength training with anyone, you want to be on the process of forming a callus, not a blister. When you are forming a callus, do you even notice it at all? When you're,
not until it's there.
Not until it's there. Yeah, it's often not painful at all. It just appears, and that skin is stronger for it. Now, when a blister happens, you obviously notice there's a ton of pain. You've gone backwards. The skin underneath is weaker, and there's a lot of discomfort, and you're starting all the way back over. So that is the risk of pushing too hard, too fast, and not progressing slowly. And again, that's with everybody, but if someone has something that going on in their muscle, and I believe it's a protein, correct? A gene that creates a protein that everyone has, but is FSHD, it's in the muscle?
You can have a mutation or a deletion.
Okay.
So, I don't know if it makes a
Something
difference.
that's supposed to be
Yeah, he
stopped.
Right.
It's not stopped, or I don't know.
In my reading, it's the same protein that controls excess muscle growth, working backwards.
Right.
It's working backwards on you.
Another analogy: sunburn versus suntan. Yeah, when you burn, it peels off. The skin underneath is whiter than before. Suntan is a gradual process. The skin is getting darker. That's the idea of microprogression. I have more, but I was going to talk about how strength training can help specifically in walking and other stuff, but let's get moving, and if we have time later, I can come back to this other stuff.
Bruce?
I got a lot of good stuff here. Do you want to talk about shoulder mechanics specifically?
Thank you everyone for having me here. My name is Bruce Montana.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. And I'm a practitioner of what they call the Rolf method of structural integration. I got into this about 22 years ago. I was a military police officer and I hurt my neck. And I had a blind physical therapist tell me that I needed Rolfing. structural integration, and through that experience, not just like cliche about the I'm the president and the client, but I'm both, and so I understand a little bit about dealing with my own ailments and how to create a better place in my body to have a better quality of life. So I'm trying to kind of put this together where maybe it kind of relates a little bit more to all of us, or you guys, and between what we're all doing together. And I have to talk about fascia or connective tissue. And there's just a lot of information now. It's actually very exciting. We have new ways to look at this, and they're coming out with new anatomy, going back, rechanging how they used to call something in the body. Now they're doing something else. They're testing this connective tissue that surrounds your entire body. Most of it's made out of collagen from these fibroblast cells, and I'll go into a little bit about it. But actually, let me explain a little bit of what fascia is here. So I'm kind of like Noah. My notes were all over the place. It just got real exciting trying to put this all together. The collagen in your body is kind of like they were just talking about your healing. So the way I view healing is your body heals in 3 different ways. So when you cut your finger, the first thing is your body goes into an inflammation stage. Then your body goes in what they call proliferation. That's when your body then creates scar tissue that comes from collagen. It creates myofascial trigger points, myofascial restriction where the connective tissues actually stick together. And your body's tissue is supposed to slide over each other. It's supposed to be like a two-way slide. So there's a man named doctor named Tom Myers, and he's an expert. He's known internationally and wrote several different books and videos. And he's another form of structural integration. His brand is called KMI. They got Rolf Technique, hell of work. My instructor was Dr. Ida Rolf's first class he put together who invented this. And I was taught by him. But they're showing the connection of how all this connects together, because we're really interconnected. And just with his work, he shows with working with people with plantar fasciitis. You guys know what plantar fasciitis is? Yeah, that's the bottom of your foot. The plantar is the foot. Fascia, the connection from the digits to the calcaneus. And what happens is, we look at through posture, creates a strain, and people get a tear, they get bone spurs, they get inflammation, and that whole process of proliferation, and then it goes into what they call maturation, where the body's supposed to get rid of all the scar tissue, and sometimes it takes days, months, years, and sometimes it gets stuck on there. And so what he was able to show is that working with the lower leg affected the foot. And they actually have now research with all of this now. It's just getting really interesting. So they have experts in sport medicine now going in, yes, as we dorsiflex and plantar flex of foot, we actually show the sliding of the fascial tissues on there and how that relates. Also, by even stretching your leg, how it increases your mobility in your neck. So we were like a web, like just think like Spider-Man web. Or even think of an orange. When you peel an orange, it has a covering. And each orange in there, peeled, has a covering. And inside there, you see those little pieces in there. That's like your muscle fibers. That a bunch of them make a muscle. They're surrounded. So the whole thing is, we're also electric. And all that together from the inside of the muscle transmit, it's like a semiconductor around the muscles and send messages through voltage from inside the muscle, outside to your organs, to your brain. It's all interconnected. And so this is one part of what I wanted to talk about was what fascia is. There's another part here too, and it has to do with, I think we're talking a little bit about hydration. Your body, fascia actually stores water, and it's actually like a hydraulic pump. And so keeping it hydrated, and your body's mostly 70% water, helps your body be able to move freely, pain-free as well.
Oh, you get cramps when you're dehydrated.
Absolutely.
I don't have a problem staying hydrated. I'm good with that.
Yeah. So one of the things too that's real important for everyone here about activity, with like proper weight training or fitness training with like Jake and Noah, and they specialize in really knowing what is not working and how to go in there and to do it really safely. That's why I love working with them. That's why I referred Albert over to them, because I knew they knew exactly where to go and make sure when he worked out, he was going to do it in a safe manner. I'm on there. But your body, when you're inactive, your body creates more collagen. The more inactive you are, the more collagen, so the more stiff you get. And that compresses on your nerves, on your muscles. And it's kind of like, can I get you to come up here real quick? It's kind of, we call this forced transmission. No, we're gonna show here. And is it okay if I touch your shoulder and on your hip?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's kind of like this. So fascia is like a web around your body. And this is like working, how we work with Albert and how it helps them with the MAT part and them doing what they're an expert at. It's kind of like if that web in here is pulling her shoulder here like this, and I'm going to ask you now to, let me see here, to raise both arms up. Okay, there'll be a strain on her shoulder. Do you feel the pull on there?
Yes.
This is kind of like was working with Albert. There's this fascia that's binding this area down. Now if you raise them forward now, bring them up, how does it feel? Fine, looser, right? And that's what the connective tissue do. That's what we see in the session. And it's kind of like this as well, because I want to do what we're moving. Like in the hip. You see that we're pulling the hip up here, and actually go ahead and walk so they can see you walk with that. Okay? Okay, now come on back this way here. Now I'm gonna hold your low back and glue together here. Okay? And it's kind of like with this. Now walk.
Oh, yep.
Yeah. Now you might see how it may affect her shoulder, her foot, her neck, and this is what we look like you in movement with this. On here, so thank you very much. On here. And so, as with structural integration, what we're looking at is that whole interconnection of fascia. And again, like, they're doing so much more science with this, it's pretty incredible. There's so much that I was calling some of the leaders in it. I'm like, what do I talk about? And it talks about the brain. It's part of that because it's interconnected. All the way when you guys were talking about stress, your body creates a chemical in your body that causes your fascia to contract. And now we can actually show that your fascia, your connective tissue, can independently contract without the muscles on there. And these are, when you look at how it's all put together, there's like no space. It's all connected.
Bruce, man, I fly every week. Before I started seeing Bruce and before I started seeing Noah, I'd get off the plane every week. My neck was hurting, my back was hurting, I was stiff as a board. The stress of the travel on the body and on the mind just did a lot of damage. Today I can tell you I fly every week. I am never stiff. I never have pain in my neck. I never have pain on my back. I never wake up stiff the next day. I am just like I was before I got on the plane. Every week. And I'm on a plane every week because of the work that we're doing here. By all of it together combined, eliminating, creating a much stronger and stable body that can withstand that stress and not stiffen up and not dehydrate and just be able to withstand the pressures. That's been my life experience.
And I want to go back to inactivity. And this is why it's important to move. Okay, they even have studies with even showing something simple as someone with a broken arm in a sling for 3 weeks, and then showing now the overgrowth of the collagen in there, which makes you stiff, left supple, presses on your nerves, and inhibits the way you move, just like what we did with this young lady, pulling her shoulder down. So it's going to be, my job is to open you up and give you the new possibilities to stand freer, sit freer, move freer, and working with the MAT specialist here with training is for them to then go, okay, let's go ahead and let's get these muscles that haven't been able to move properly and do it in a safe manner, and then personalize it to where you're at so you can get stronger, get more stability on here. So there's another thing here I wanted to talk about here. This is interesting. Okay, researchers found that stiffness of the connective tissue regulates minute by fibroblasts, those are the cells that create collagen, In the fascia, it's a dynamic, active cellular regulation of connective tissue tension. For example, when acupuncture needles are inserted, they actually show us science here now that the fibroblasts respond and expand, and that's what helps your tissue to relax. And that may also be why what we do in manual therapy, and may also be with Noah and what Jake also do as well on here. So there's a lot more science of how this is all connected. We're still finding out again.
Are those located at the origin and insertion?
Well, that has to do with, for example, that has to do with, or it might be, yeah, you're right. It could be maybe like the Golgi tendon organs.
That's where we palpate.
Yeah. So then the Golgi tendon organs, it's kind of like your muscles have like an on and off switch. You have your active alpha motor neurons that is switch on, tells the muscles to activate or create activity, and then you have your Golgi tendon organs that turn it off, so contract and relax. So those are, and there's many different nerve receptors. Other than that, they're throughout the entire body, and that's a whole nother part. So that's why I'm trying to keep it as part. But I think we talked about the emotional. Now what we kind of model off is by what they call fascial tensegrity. There's a guy named, I think it's Buckmeister, and he was working as a scientist and was trying to show how the model of the body worked, and it was like these tension pulleys and struts and how it holds itself up, and they have buildings that have nothing in them, and they're, I forgot how many feet high up in the air, and they're like, how in the world are they able to hold themselves up? And it's through these ways of balancing all these struts and levers and on there, and your body's kind of the same way, and with your connective tissue. And again, now they're showing that with science on here that even your bones are held that way through your connective tissue. They're floating freely in your body. Not only your bones, even your spine. We used to think it was a stiff pole with little cushions in there holding it up. They're held up through this tensegrity model, through the fascial system. So everything is interconnected. So when we work with a certain part of the body again, through what we call fascial transmission or force transmission, the plantar fasciitis might have to relate with my calf, or maybe my low back pain has to do with my hips, my hamstrings, or my foot. In fact, they've showed that the strength of your connective tissue is like steel, and it will actually stretch or shift 75% of its own length and will return. But in low back pain, they do a lot of studies in there in Germany about it. They were showing that 75% of the people the people that had back pain had less fascial or collagen buildup in their back, and the people that had more had back pain, and they had about 50% less movement from that. So there's a lot of things in here. This is what we work with through our manual work. I think we were going to do a little. Do I have time to show a quick little demo here, Jake?
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure that I have. This is maintains proper. Okay, this is one more thing too with the vertebra here. They were also able to show that not only when the fascia tension is maintained, it maintains each vertebra to remain erect and pain-free, even if you have a disc degeneration. This is what they're showing now. It's getting really interesting. And there's experiment now in Rolfing or structural integration showing that fascial manipulations such as Rolfing, and these are my notes, help increase water reserves and suppleness in the fascial tissue. And so this is what we do. We're going to show you a little example of what we do here with Albert. And this is just part of what made Albert better. Here again is coming back, getting him or not activated, but that's a good word for you guys. But active again, because if you're not active, you create more of this stuff and you get stiffer. You create more pain around this. So out of anything to get out of this is just maybe learning some new things here. that I have to do something here and commit to a certain time so I have a better quality of life. If anything, that's what I want to make sure that I express to everyone in here, that you have that's on you to do that. You can do that, and you just have to find your way. But this is how we work with Albert. We believe that what we're doing is helping him and through what we're doing. And this is my first person to work with them on here too. So I'm not an expert in what everyone has here, but I do know that working with Albert, this is what we've been doing. It's been helping.
When I was in the process of getting diagnosed, I started sending Noah and Bruce all this research, photographs, PowerPoint presentations from the FSH website and all this stuff. I said, guys, you gotta immerse yourself in this stuff. You need to learn this. You need to get ready to take care of me because we're going down this path together. And they have. They've done a lot of research on the subject. They've all gotten better as a result of it because they know so much more about the disease. So I thought it was just that's another reason why I thought it would be a good opportunity to see who else we can help.
We also learned, it's helped me with just other clients as well.
Yep.
As far as the things that have worked for you, it's translated over to other clients that have.
Yeah. I mean, Bruce just provided you with a scientific explanation as to why being sedentary is a bad thing. Why not moving is not good for your body. Moving, staying active, less collagen, less scar tissue, less stiffness, staying active, moving around, incredibly important.
You want me to do a little demo?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
And then we'll do a demo as well.
Okay, and I'm just going to keep it, we're going to do something real simple here, but I think we're going to use,
You have a volunteer?
We have a
Who is
volunteer.
this person?
Okay, so,
Sure you can see that.
so we were talking earlier, and we were talking about your right foot. We really don't have an issue with the right foot, but it's just something that easy to kind of show you guys a little bit of the connective tissue, the force transmission, and how balancing that creates better ease in the body. When I do work on people on their feet, I always tell them, we're going to give you a new pair of shoes, because I'll get some people going, what the heck did you just do this foot, and can you do that one on here too? So we're just going to give you a little example, and hopefully we get some good result here, especially being filmed. So, okay, do you mind removing the first foot, shoe there? Okay, and what I'm going to do is your sock off, and you know what, let's have you lay on your back. And normally what we do is we'll have people stand and walk, and we're looking at your gait and trying to see how this relates. You might have to grab their shoulder. Now Tom Myers again, he's his own internationally for structural integration. He used to work at the Rolf Institute as they're teaching anatomy, and now he's just known everywhere. He's an expert in the field, and again, dealing with plantar fasciitis. What he's seen and what I've seen as well too is working with the lower feet or the lower leg, which means beneath the knee and down, how it affects the foot on there. And really it's about just creating balance. You know, we're freeing everything around the joints, or about the spine, like if the shoulders are able to come back, like we were talking about.
Yeah, before I saw Bruce, I was hunched over like this. So I would walk like this. And my hips were stiff. So with Bruce, we got everything sitting back. And you said, oh, you have this, you look great. Well, that's part of the reason is, I've actually built a better posture. I'm standing straight and I can move my hips. They're shifting. They're moving athletically.
I have to chime in with us also working on those muscles in between the
Absolutely.
shoulder blades.
All the muscles that he's strengthening, they pull the shoulder blades back.
Yeah, yeah. And that's where you get stronger, where they're creating stability. But I would say more with Jake and what Noah do too with it, is they go and they specifically find which muscles are not activating. And especially with dealing with Albert or with you folks as well, they can go in and do that. And then when you do exercise, you're stronger, and it's a safer way to do your training. So that's why it was important for me to move them over and work with these guys here. So this is just what part of I do on here. So we're going to take a look at her foot here. And so her foot, this is how much flexibility it has in here. And come over here real quick. So at least I'm going to have him, because I'll help him feel her foot afterwards. And actually, Do you mind if everyone touch your foot here? No. Okay. Okay. Anyone wants to come over here and just feel her flexibility? I just want you to do this. Just feel that. And you can put your other hand underneath her heel. Okay. Does anyone want to feel her flexibility? Because after we work on it, it's going to be open, and she's going to walk different on here. Okay. Okay. You feel that? Okay. So go ahead and have a seat.
Tension here.
She does. She does. So working with the. Can I raise this up here? Okay. So. You didn't know you were going to be a leg model, huh?
No, I was today.
So here we're working with the fascia, the connective tissue, and I'm going to have you slowly bring your toes up towards you. And I know I have my back to the camera, but I really didn't plan this correctly on here. So, and go ahead and slowly bring it back. Now I'm doing like a fast version. This is one part of it, but just like what Noah was saying, you know, when he first started training, was a certain way here. Even with this work here, I thought the same way as well. We're looking in your tissue to see if you have scar tissue. Is it a myofascial trigger point? Is it a myofascial restriction? Is it a muscle contraction or muscle spasm? Everything that we're doing, is it posture related? Everything is treated differently to be as thorough as possible with this type of work. So let's slowly bring up your toes again. Now, if it's past, if it ever feels painful, let me know. If it's tender, it's okay. See, when your body, when it heals, the first thing it goes into inflammation. So if I ever cause pain, I'm creating inflammation. If I create inflammation, I'm creating more scar tissue, and I'm doing what I don't want to do. So the whole time I have to communicate with the person to make sure that I'm not doing that. Okay, so then bring your toes up.
And I will compliment that big thing that Bruce just said is very, very important. And I would probably say, and Bruce would say this as well, there's some practitioners that, you know, kind of go at this with a no pain, no gain philosophy. And that treatment can be a bit inflammatory. Where, you know, Bruce's treatments, he's just got a very good touch and a very good method to what he's doing, so he's not forcing something to happen. That's why the synergy between us is very, very strong. We do not, through exercise or through establishing better range of motion or through Bruce trying to establish better range of motion, all of us are looking to not force something to happen. The only way that your body is going to really receive and hold on to progress is that basically we're accessing that subconscious system, convincing that system that there is a better option. If you force a square peg in a round hole, you will release and you will feel looser temporarily, but the results are not sustainable.
And you lose stability as well.
Almost
and strength.
Very rarely do I, the next day after a training session with Noah, very rarely do I have any soreness in the body. We're not going for soreness. We're not going for pain. We're going for stability and increase in strength on a steady rate. That's why, yes, you absolutely don't want to overwork the body because you will go backwards. And not just if you have this disease, for anybody.
When you're forming a callus, you don't necessarily need muscle soreness. Sometimes muscle soreness is actually a sign that you went too far. Not always, but sometimes. And most people in the gym, a lot of people feel like if they don't have soreness, then they didn't have a good workout.
Bruce is working already.
Not true.
And I want you to hold here and to relax your foot.
Much better.
Yeah.
I like.
And this is just how the lower leg affects it. Now, if we had more time, I'd be going in there looking for myofascial trigger points, myofascial morpho restriction, and doing scar tissue release. So there's a lot more that I would do here. I'm going to have you roll also on your stomach. So this is just a really fast, but just this little bit of work that I'm doing here creates length here and transfers into her foot on here. So we're just kind of in her calf, I'm filling around the first part just for the restriction. So I'm just not going to just work over anything, just to work on it. So I'm filling around on what I feel is restricted. And then as I kind of like layering the body out, and as I do that, I'm looking at what's underneath. And then what's underneath that. And each thing is treated differently. And again, it has to be done in a, where some of the areas might be tender, that's okay. But again, we're not looking for any pain in here. And it's just, you can always add on, you can't take away. It's good policy there. Go ahead and pull your toes up for me, the other way, there you go. And we're creating length, and there's Achilles. And the reason why that's important, that has to do when you stand up. If you're this way, this shortens. It's almost like pulling a bow and arrow, and that gets real tight in there. But when you're able to extend, your back gets longer. Your shoulders can drop back. Your head can come back over your shoulder. And you have this balance, like if you had a broomstick in your hand, and you just balanced it there. Once you found up, I used to think posture was pointing my head up. It wasn't. It was just finding up and finding down and being there. And you should be able to walk that way relaxed in there too. So again, we're just doing a little bit here. And like I said, I would do other things as well. I might be going in and looking at fibrotic tissue. Fibrotic tissue, scar tissue are the same thing. And that has another release. So usually I'll come have you do this, have you walk, see the difference, and then I'll see what we need to do there. And if it's fibrotic tissue that we have to release, then we do another technique. We go in and do that as well on there. But I kind of like piecing together so everyone can see how each part works, you know. And so here is a little tender here. Yeah, so this is like a myofascial trigger point here. And I'm working through that myofascial trigger point. And we're not going to do too much more here because I'm going to go ahead and give these guys a chance to finish with their demo as well. But just this little bit of change we're doing, it affects the whole function of the whole. If I would have had her bent forward, you might set one hip higher than the other. When we would do something like this on your foot, it may have balanced the hip, because it works all together. Again, they were showing the leg movement, moving the leg, was increasing mobility in the neck. I mean, it's really all connected. It's really interesting. Let's have you stand up. I'm going to have you walk. And I just want you to see how that feels right now. And usually you feel like you have more contact in your feet. You're a little bit more grounded. Yes. Does it feel a little looser in there? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So okay. So that's a little bit of.
That's very minor. He works the entire body.
Yeah.
So
and typically we'll work different parts of the body.
If you don't mind while you're there, I'll do one more
Oh,
synergistic
sure.
thing.
There you go. There you go. This is how you work
there. Doesn't matter. So lay on back down.
You want this?
You're fine for now. So basically, you know, what Bruce worked on through here, muscle structure in here and tib. I'll go a little technical for a second, but AK wanted to improve range of motion in this path. So what MAT does, and we'll do this in a couple different ways, but first MAT does muscle testing, and that is asking the brain a question. The muscle test says, ask the brain in a subconscious way, can you hold this position? So what I'm going to do, just relax for me, is I'm going to lift your foot up. Don't let me push your foot down. So what I'm going to do is just like that, okay? So you relax first, please. Keep that foot up. And then hold. Yep, hold. Relax. So her foot starts to bend. As I push, her foot starts to bend right here. What I'm going to do is we asked her brain, can you hold that? Her brain says, not exactly. It says, I can a little bit, but not great. In this window, her brain is interested in the answer. Any question, we all work this way. If I ask you the question 10 times 20, everybody in the room at least spends some time wondering about the answer. It may be 5 seconds, maybe 60 seconds looking for the answer. But inevitably, our brains work that way. Relax for me. So while I ask the question, while her brain is searching for the answer, I am stimulating that a muscle attachment. Particular muscles called your anterior tibialis. Relax for me. Relax. Good. You okay? Good. Keep your foot up. Don't let me push it down. And hold. Good. Relax. And then the response
Feel stronger?
is a little more instant. That demonstration, at least in that position, is probably something she can only feel because it's not this big break point. But the question, what we're looking for in a muscle response is instant. The answer basically should be as simple as 1 + 1 = 2. You may get up if you like. And whenever we find an area, in particular, what I'm going to demonstrate on Noah is shoulder mobility. We find a limitation in shoulder mobility, we objectify that limitation by saying, oh, definitely that one's more limited than the other. So for starters, Noah, while you just stand here, internally rotate your arms, both arms. Yep. Turn them in, and then lift up and out as far as you got. So this guy's kind of coming up and out, and this guy's coming up and out. So this one, everybody tell me which one's better. The right one's better. So lay on your back, Noah. We break every movement down into the muscles that would control that movement. In the demonstration, I'm going to really only demonstrate 1 or 2 muscles. But in a treatment session, we break every single movement pattern down into basically folders and files and folders. Relax for me. So this muscle said this was limited. I'm going to test this muscle called your upper trap. Turn your head for me. His arm is up in that position. Now I'm about to ask that question. Hold there for me and hold. When I'm testing something, this is a test of reaction. It is not like a brute force test. You either have it or you just are like saying, I don't know what you're asking. So once again, like I did earlier, I'm going into that muscle attachment point, simply stimulating the motor neuron pull. Okay, just stimulating the area while the brain is looking for the answer.
And yesterday I did an upper body workout, some over the head presses, of course in the appropriate range of motion for me. But the short-term result of that is I can't hold that position, and my left upper trap is weak, and my left upward rotation of the shoulder blade is a little off today.
So one thing that Noah just said, he did a shoulder, aka he did a shoulder workout yesterday.
And back.
And he did not necessarily, we don't have an infinite amount of time to do MAT on each other all the time. So he did not do MAT prior to the workout. He did a good, appropriate workout. But we always have the ability to decide if the exercise, how effective and appropriate was the exercise. And what I mean by that, so now I go back in. The reason, I'm going to jump for a second back to this.
And I will say what
Turn your head for me.
What I do.
So he's in this position again and hold. Good. So now he has increased output and he's increased communication. Stand up for me now and do the same range of motion mode.
Yeah. My internal rotation I've never seen.
Internally rotate and then just gross shoulder movement. Now which one?
About even, or is it?
Left
No,
one is
this
probably.
left one looks better now.
Looks better.
Got more? All right, we gotta do this one now.
So that's just one muscle. In that particular pattern of that's shoulder mobility for upward rotation. Some technical jargon for, we would treat at least 10 muscles for roughly 20 minutes. to get that pattern of muscles comprehensively treated. And then we can say, okay, now Albert, we're gonna go and we're gonna do some shoulder exercises that involve this. We do exercises for 10, 20, 30 minutes, and we're making our best judgment. And in that, after that, or we just say like, we're 15 minutes in and Albert, no one notices that his range of motion changed. And Albert kind of like, you know, was struggling, starting to struggle. We say, hey, let's tap the brakes. Lay down real quick, Albert. Albert lays down real quick, and we recheck some muscles. Sometimes we see, hey, they're still all stable. Let's just keep working out. I think you're just getting fatigued. That's okay. We're trying to fatigue the muscle and get it stronger. Other times we see, oh, we've lost stability. Let's stop that form of exercise, lay back on the table. Let's restabilize. Let's take a few minutes to restabilize those muscles, making sure that the brain and everything is working in conjunction with each other. Then we go back into the exercise. That is how we make exercise decisions. And that's a demonstration on one single joint in the shoulder. We think through every single joint in the body and every muscle that moves every one of those joints in making our decisions. We're constantly triaging our efforts. Where are we putting our biggest energy today? And then, you know, as Albert progresses, you know, the workouts increase as far as intensity and volume and how much you're doing or diversity of what you're doing. But day one workout, like we said, day one, you may not get off the table because we're working to get muscles more stable.
I never got off the table for a few weeks.
Yeah.
2 weeks.
I never went to the gym for weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Week 2, week 3, you may be 30 minutes to get that shoulder doing what we want it to do, and then we move into exercise.
Mm-hmm.
But every decision we make, we try to make it an objective decision based off of what your body is saying. Not, go ahead.
And then with the exercise, you know, knowing where to start and how to stress the muscle and what range as well.
So I mean,
not just like, okay, we've activated his, you know, my traps are activated now. I'm gonna go out there and just shrug away, and get that no neck look.
I want to make sure we open the floor to, you know, anybody's questions.
Can I just
Yes.
add one more thing here, because I got lost into the science on connective tissue. The other thing that also works synergistically with what the MAT specialists here work with is when we work with your body, we're also training you by awareness exercises how to sit, how to stand, how to walk, how to use my hip, and we're remapping the brain because your unconscious part of your brain has a map that if you have shoulder pain, you're usually doing this, and you'll see this. And we're helping you remap this new map, and now we're now showing this in science how the brain is working. Yeah. And they have this one scientist who did a study on a speaker speaking to the audience, and they were referring it to physical entrainment. And in physical entrainment, they have these levers that all are on this block, and they're all moving differently. But when they put these 2 cylinders underneath, it absorbs the energy, and now they're all moving together. And so basically it was showing through that how when a speaker first talks, a certain part of their brains activate, and there might be 3 people. Then when they get into what you're talking about, as we're working with that person, the brain activates more in the same place of all of them. And when they were all graphing differently, now they're all graphing the same, with the same activity. But the bigger part was when they actually looked at the speaker's brain, his same place of his brain was activated, and he was graphing with them. So that's a sound, that's energy that comes out. It's very interesting now. We're talking about a lot of new stuff coming out. So, but anyways, just wanted to add that part in there.
Yeah, back to strength training, which I keep going back to. But chest press, I want people to feel the muscle that they're training. I want to establish that mind to muscle connection kind of all the time. And there's a place you can get to where you can kind of let go of that a little bit, but definitely starting off, I want people to get in touch with their body. I kind of call it Tai Chi resistance training because it's typically very slow movements, focusing on the 3 different types of muscle contractions. Concentric, where things are shortening and you're moving against the weight. And the eccentric, the weight is moving you, you're decelerating. That's also extremely important. And then of course, isometric contraction with no movement. So yeah, definitely starting off, I want people, and I think some of us vary as far as how much, you know, I think that's extremely important, especially someone who you're starting off. I mean, Albert will tell you, like, you know, we were coming up with so many different scenarios so he could actually feel it.
It took a while. I mean, there's some trial and error.
There was trial and error.
We don't use momentum.
Oh yeah, that's
Any
another thing.
exercise.
I was going to
We
talk.
don't use momentum at all.
I was going to talk more about reps and
We focus on every movement with absolute purpose and focus, and my mind is in connection with those muscle groups that I'm trying to work. It actually took me some time to train my mind to do that.
Yeah.
He does some great reps.
So,
You guys have any questions?
You want the muscle doing the work. When there's momentum, the muscle's not working. And the stress of the load shifts to other places besides the muscle, and that's potentially bad.
you must have questions.
How often do you come in now?
Yeah, so I'm here every week.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah. We do
2 hours with Noah, an hour and a half with Bruce. And I try to be as consistent with that, given my travel plans as possible. Yeah, it's significant because I am traveling so much. 3.5, which actually becomes 4 hours away from the family on the weekend, is tough. But if I don't do it, I'm not going to be very functional. So it's just it's an investment I have to make.
And we spend about 30 to 40 minutes on the table.
Probably 30 to 40 minutes on the table, but that's all. That's been a progression.
Mm-hmm.
At the beginning was 100% of the time on the table.
Sure.
Yeah. And isometrics are a big one as well, which I've had in my notes to get into. They can be extremely beneficial, especially if you're trying to work on your shoulder stability. You know, like for example, something like this for the traps. I'm engaging in between my shoulder blades and about 10% force, about 6 seconds. 6 reps in 6 seconds.
You folks feel comfortable talking about what issues you're dealing with?
Yeah, that's I'm like, well, let me ask some questions.
Yeah.
What do you guys teach?
What are you struggling
Do
with?
you have any left-handed?
Yeah.
You're left-handed?
Yeah.
So, do you find that your left shoulder is the more unstable one?
Yes, and it's my left arm in general is weaker than my right, which is, and then my left leg is stronger than my right.
Okay.
Which is totally weird to me.
No.
But you're left-footed and left-handed.
Yeah.
Well, I have the same issue.
And are you aware of any kind of imbalance in your trunk or spine?
I mean, I have a lot of lower back pain from walking.
On the right side.
Well, it's kind of across the board, but I
Okay.
think I walk kind of wobbly, so that's,
Sure.
again, there's a lot of trying to lose some weight, so it's not so much pressure on my lower back. And I know my core needs to be strengthened because, you know, walking is, you know, and stairs are definitely a pain now. So.
And proper shoulder mechanics
Absolutely,
rely
yeah.
on a stable
Right, my
core.
shoulder is just like Al said. I mean, I couldn't be an umpire in an NFL game signaling a touchdown, right?
Right.
You'd be like, touchdown.
Right.
You know, it's like
Yeah.
it doesn't work that way. So
And we typically see these zigzag patterns on people. I was going to talk specifically about what I've seen with Albert. I had notes
I'm
like this to tell
right-handed.
you.
She's right-handed. Her right shoulder is the one that's unable to move free range of motion all the way up.
yeah,
Well, my story is that I first found out about my situation actually with a trainer. I was going to LA Fitness. I was trying to get into shape, and I had hired a trainer to help me. And as we're going through the training with him, he starts to observe certain things that are happening as we're doing specific exercises. One of which is, number one, I couldn't do a sit-up even if he killed me. I mean, there was
A
just no
sit-up
way.
or a crunch?
No sit-up whatsoever. Because on my core, as far as my abdominal, nothing. Nothing like this, nothing like this.
No.
Could not do anything of
The
that
same
nature.
way.
Because it's all this part of me. This is my abdomen is one of my weakest parts of my body. So he had to put a ball behind me, do it to a point where everything was. He had to assist me in every aspect of it.
So if I said contract your stomach muscles, or
I
you
can hardly contract my stomach muscles. Hardly.
Okay.
That's why, although I had a tummy tuck many years ago, I already have a bloated stomach again.
Yeah.
And then my left side is more protruded than the right.
Like
So you have the
Same pattern.
right shoulder, and
Yeah.
I
Right shoulder, left side.
My situation is a little bit different than my brother's, where I can go like this,
yeah.
but I cannot go any further than this.
Okay.
If I want to go any further than that, I actually have to
Yeah.
push it up. Yeah,
would-
my left arm is fine.
And then the right side of your trunk is fine as well.
The
So-
right side of
compared
my
to the
trunk
left.
is fine. This is the one that's more
Yeah, just like
protruded, but no abdominal,
Yeah.
nothing in the abdomen.
That was the first thing I noticed was my abdomen. I couldn't do sit-ups and I didn't understand why.
Cannot
Well,
do a
we're getting
sit-up.
into sit-ups versus crunches. Sit-ups is a lot of hip flexor
Yeah, it
strength,
was-
and it's a that takes a lot
Oh, you sit over
of
there.
hip flexion, as well as spinal flexion, which is rectus abdominis from the pubic bone to the sternum, closing that space, flexing the
Cannot do any of
spine.
that.
Just
I bet we could create a scenario.
I was gonna say, Albert, do you think as your core got stronger, that was part of?
Well, yeah, so for example, part of my ability to raise my arm is to strengthen my lower core.
Hey guys,
sit up like this.
Albert, can you say that again about your core?
Part of my ability to raise my arm above my head is related to my core strength.
Yep.
Because I had to arch my back, right? And I can hold it up there, and I'm still arching a little bit, but I used to arch like that because I didn't have anything here.
Yeah.
So all the work that we're doing weekly here to strengthen these muscles is helping me get stronger.
Here. This has to anchor off something. So it anchors off the whole thing, but mostly over here, especially depending on which direction you're going.